have an esteemed panel here and an interesting topic, women in cinema. And of course, all of them achievers in their country and making a difference. So let me start with Vani first. Women in cinema. Women are always the catalyst of change. And also nowadays we see a different trend, because first it was women, cinema of women was seen as feminist. And then came a second trend where women only spoke about stuff about female sexuality and extra. But now women have come into mainstream. Do you think so?
Well, I think first I would like to say that there was a misnomer which, probably started way back in the 60s, that women for women and women producing, directing for women, acted by women, performed by them is the way forward. Now, this was an interesting monolith, because this was almost like a gender unequal situation, because when I as an actor act, I don't act for women. I act for children and men and women and, all sections of society. So the universality bit, was sort of petered down to this very myopic kind of approach, which was in a very partisan way connected to the women's rights movement, and one understands why. But I think we have done a disservice by indulging and engaging in that kind of a narrative, because whether it's women in cinema, whether they are directing or producing or acting or writing or even being backstage, it is a universal, kind of a outreach. That outreach is not for one single person or one section of society or one particular gender. So when we look at the BRICS countries, which is 37% of the GDP of the world, and I reach out to my friend Deborah and my dear friend from South Africa, who's a very strong voice, on this, and my friend from China, I think this itself can be a way forward as far as women, the role of women, the engagement and the indulgence of women in cinema is concerned. And women for women is a misnomer, and that absolutely has to be shunned away, and the sooner we do it, the better it would be.
And also our friend from South Africa, she's like a big applause to her, 2 BAFTAs. So
Yes, of course.
So good afternoon all. Sorry if my voice sounds a little bunged up. It's the seasonal cold. So we have an esteemed panel here and an interesting topic, women in cinema. And of course, all of them achievers in their country and making a difference. So let me start with Vani first. Women in cinema. Women are always the catalyst of change. And also nowadays we see a different trend, because first it was women, cinema of women was seen as feminist. And then came a second trend where women only spoke about stuff about female sexuality and extra. But now women have come into mainstream. Do you think so?
Well, I think first I would like to say that there was a misnomer which, probably started way back in the 60s, that women for women and women producing, directing for women, acted by women, performed by them is the way forward. Now, this was an interesting monolith, because this was almost like a gender unequal situation, because when I as an actor act, I don't act for women. I act for children and men and women and, all sections of society. So the universality bit, was sort of petered down to this very myopic kind of approach, which was in a very partisan way connected to the women's rights movement, and one understands why. But I think we have done a disservice by indulging and engaging in that kind of a narrative, because whether it's women in cinema, whether they are directing or producing or acting or writing or even being backstage, it is a universal, kind of a outreach. That outreach is not for one single person or one section of society or one particular gender. So when we look at the BRICS countries, which is 37% of the GDP of the world, and I reach out to my friend Deborah and my dear friend from South Africa, who's a very strong voice, on this, and my friend from China, I think this itself can be a way forward as far as women, the role of women, the engagement and the indulgence of women in cinema is concerned. And women for women is a misnomer, and that absolutely has to be shunned away, and the sooner we do it, the better it would be.
And also our friend from South Africa, she's like a big applause to her, 2 BAFTAs, the only person from South Africa. But do you think you're like the Lone Ranger who is like fighting for her tribe, the women? And, you know, somewhere the voice tends to get squashed a bit.
Fortunately, I do come from a country which is very gender progressive in terms of constitutionally, but at the same time, it's also a very patriarchal society, and as we know, film is very paternalistic. So yes, I do tend to think that I am a bit out there, in the sense that I think that women need to stop apologizing.
Absolutely.
And women need to grab the bull by the horns. I am really of the belief that at this point in time globally, for as long as women are not making the same amount of money, because actually it boils down to the sense.
True.
We are in trouble. Women's work is never appreciated. And so I think that there has to be a shift in the mindsets of women as well, because I think that women, we don't take readily to going in front. We don't take readily to activism or politics. And so, you know, we are very self-effacing, and that is also doing a disservice to women. And, you know, there is always this dichotomy as a woman. If I become too successful, if I become too wealthy, which man is going to want to be with me? Which this, and so there is also a private conversation that women are having with them, within themselves, whereby, you know, you mustn't be as. So, and we see that across all sectors of life, whether it is film, whether it's politics, whether it is CEOs of companies. And I really just think that women must just go out there, grab the bull by the horns. We need to create a revolution. We need to make noise. We don't have to apologize. And if the men think that you are out of order as a woman for wanting that, then too bad. Because there is the other issue whereby we do have patriarchy in a dress. We do have women who are making it, but those very same women are also creating a problem in terms of the politics. So I think, yes, money, sense, and a political shift is, you know what I mean, what is actually needed globally. And within the BRICS space, as my esteemed friend here has just mentioned, if we are contributing 37% of the GDP, where are the women? Where the sense, and it's a debate that's going everywhere. Tennis, CEOs of companies, women need to just stop apologizing for wanting to be successful and wanting it all.
And also we have Deborah from Brazil. I mean, Brazil has had, you know, many women directors who've made movies. So what do you feel, like women don't get a raw deal anymore, and there are roles written for them and they can do, I mean, usually cinema is a mouthpiece. It talks about change and, you know, so do you think it's working well in Brazil, or do you think there needs to be a shift in perception?
No Brasil, as mulheres foram ocupando o lugar de diretora e essas funções que são mais de liderança no cinema, né? O diretor, o produtor, assistente de direção, fotografia, essas funções no cinema que estão mais como liderança, antes eram ocupadas por homens.
She's saying that in Brazil there are lots of women directors and who are dominated in the Brazilian cinema. Along with the acting, they also show the photography of the society and other aspect like culture and other aspect of the society. But they have dominated properly to the Brazilian cinema, the women of the Brazil.
Oh, that's very, very promising and encouraging.
Mas com o tempo, as mulheres começaram a ocupar essas funções e também, dramaturgicamente, na dramaturgia também foram surgindo papéis em que a mulher estava como protagonista, o que até os personagens dos filmes eram também em sua maioria masculinos. E agora
she's saying now that in the ancient time also women has played the role of protagonists like heroes, and they were appreciated by all over the world, like they worked as a man did in the movies, and they played a role of a man in the movie.
And moving across to our friend from China, and also China is the second largest exporter of films. It's a huge film industry. So would you like to tell us a bit about the representation of women in your cinema? We have seen a lot of movies, and also the society's culture is very similar to, the Asian culture is also very, very similar. We have like common threads. So would you like to say something?
现在在中国的话，其实在电影行业，包括编剧、导演、演员，其实都是占了很大一个比例的。其实在中国，关于男女平等的这个东西，我觉得现在在中国女性是越来越强大的。
In China, in Chinese film industry, there are like actors and ladies directors. They all are doing very well, and as you know, China is there is gender just equality, so we don't have like any problem. We are doing very well.
That's really, really encouraging.
而且不只是我们一边享受着女性她自己能力越来越强大带来的好处，而且就是可以得到男性因为觉得女性是弱的，他们还能得到一些女性的对于女性的帮助。对。
In China, women are doing very well, but still they are like struggling to get more important place in cinema industries. So they are help of the women. They are doing well.
It seems to be women for women here. And also, I spoke to a popular actor who, from our own industry, Deepika Padukone, who's voted in the top 10 list of Forbes, but she still doesn't get paid as much as, say, the second rung of an actor. And I spoke to a producer who says, no, it's all market driven, depends how much people want to see her. So you mean to say that you don't want to see a top star as much as you want to see your second level of a male star is something that completely baffled me. And Vani, you've been like part of the film industry, also part of the censor board. What do you think is do you think it's the mindset outside? It's not just within the industry.
You see, you have to look at the whole context of this discourse. The ambit is much larger. You have to look at, as my dear friend said, patriarchy is not just a word. It's a very deeply rooted, entrenched phenomena which goes deeper into almost, it's like second to DNA of various cultures and societies. And if we just look at from a judgment point of view, it will be as simple as how is a girl child treated vis-a-vis a boy child in various cultures. Of course, in India there is a lot of debate about female feticide, female infanticide, how do we portray our women. And remember, the change which is coming is that if you look at the narratives of cinema in India today, these are ugly narratives. They are no more just pretty narratives. You have women protagonists who go out there, and when I say ugly, I'm not talking about the physical appearance at all. So that's not the judgment paradigm. The paradigm is these are narratives which are real. They are probably not pretty stories. They are about violence, and they are about all kinds of coercion which happens. And with great, courage, men and women, and I underline it, I underline it that some of the best films of last year and this year, which have also done very well commercially. So what is the commerce which is, dictating it? Those films which are not just the hourglass figures and the beauty and the, pretty aspect of women and the pretty side of womanhood, as we say. This womanhood is aggressive. This kind of womanhood is in your face out there, and it is very real. So this is also a great propaganda. Say that the market doesn't want it. Who will decide the market? If people are watching it, if people are ready to engage in it, if there is a dialogue which is happening societally in terms of influence, what is the market? The market is you and me. And I think this is where the change will come. People are finally getting up. They are watching this kind of cinema, and they are hugging it. They are embracing it. And they know that as this discourse goes forward, we all know that as the discourse will go forward, you will see the change. Probably it will be much more subtle than just an aggressive kind of a movement. But this change is coming, and it's here to stay. It was a subtext. It's no more a subtext. It's now becoming the mainstream.
And also, recently at the Academy Awards, you had Catherine Bigelow, who made Zero Dark 30. It was a one-off. But you don't see women making movies like gritty films like that. Do you think somewhere also people are wary to invest in a project driven by a woman? I'm asking you.
Well, there is that. There is always the notion that somehow men do it better. I don't know when that started, because actually women are the ones who do the work. And I do think that financiers have a lot in terms of what it is, the narrative that they want to push. And I am really of the opinion that somewhere along the line, you are having women wanting to make those kinds of stories. You are having women making those kinds of stories. But most importantly, you, the consumer, you actually have the power to dictate what it is that you want. And I know that many people want stories whereby women are more out there. Because women are out there. But somehow there is always this conflict or this dichotomy. I don't really want to take a risk as a financier to do this. Maybe I won't. But I just think that we have to create spaces as women as well. Because actually men are not doing us a favor by wanting us to be part of their club. We don't want to be part of the man's club. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So, and I think that women have to just go out there, and if it means just going boof, creating their own spaces and doing what they have to do, we are going to have more narratives that women and actually men want to watch.
This discourse will be incomplete if we keep the men out. I'm underlining this, and to all my male friends in the audience, this discourse is not about keeping our male friends out. Because at the end of the day, and as it is said in the Chinese philosophy, the balance of the yin and the yang.
Yeah, true.
I mean, all art is a collaboration. It's a collaborative effort. So why is it that one should have a headway over the other? Because this is not about competition. Art is created out of great collaborative expression. It's about a consensus. It's about disagreements which can finally lead to a consensus. But it's a collaboration, and we have to remember that this discourse will be incomplete if the men are not a part of it.
Absolutely. Would you like to say something? I mean, on the same thing that we're talking about how women can bring about change.
其实我自己觉得，我还可能太年轻，说自己是妇女。
She said she is too young to comment on this.
But I mean, it's the youth that is going to be the driving force.
You are the future.
You are the future. They are the torch bearers.
Okay, I always think I am a young girl.
No.
就是在自己擅长的这个领域更加的努力。
doing my effort, putting my great effort to this industry will change it.
So moving to our friend from Brazil, Deborah, would you also want to comment on this about women? I mean, what change as a woman do you want to see and are willing to bring about? That one mindset that you want to change in the film industry about women in cinema and the arts. Is there a mindset that you would want to change?
A mulher no cinema brasileiro tem ganhado uma força muito grande. Passado esses primeiros anos do cinema brasileiro em que os homens ocupavam esses principais cargos, as mulheres vieram para o cinema com todos os seus desejos de fazer cinema e o cinema que eu trabalho lá é um pouco fora do cinema comercial. Nós temos um problema que os filmes são produzidos, mas não conseguem ir para salas de cinema. Eles circulam nos festivais.
She's saying that as already in Brazil, the women have dominated the Brazilian cinema, but the film that we make, that not our type of commercial type of movies. They are only shown in the schools or in the festivals or in other concerts, but they don't go in the commercial purpose in the cinema, in the market. But she said that I will try my best to improve myself and to get that type of movies that will uplift me in the market.
A região onde eu moro, que é no Nordeste, tem crescido nas produções do cinema, que geralmente no Sudeste que eram as grandes produções. E o Nordeste começou a crescer em suas produções e em outros roteiros, que são esses fora do cinema comercial, que são histórias diferentes, que são histórias de mulheres, que são histórias dessa região do Nordeste, que é uma região mais pobre, mas que conseguiu crescer no cinema.
She's saying that we make different type of movies, like the people who make for commercial purposes. Like in our movies, women play the role, but they don't play that type of role which are shown in the market in the commercial purposes. But now the cinema in the rural areas is getting up, and we are doing best to get the rural areas movies into the market to show. But sometimes they have problem in the rural areas. That type of movies generally are not shown in the cinemas, which are more popular.
Esse cinema do Nordeste, dessa região onde eu nasci, é um cinema que é feito com recursos públicos. Os artistas lutaram para que houvessem mais recursos públicos para fazer cinema.
She's saying that the region where I born, there is a cinema. Before that, there was no cinema, but they fight for the cinema. Now there is a cinema, and movies are shown there, so that we can see, or the public also can see the movie, and they can see the role of the women there.
So films being an important tool, but then again, what she said was sometimes cinema or women gets restricted to the film festival circuit. And also, a lot of women make independent movies are coming up, but then they fight to get the movies released. Vani, do you think somewhere things are looking a little promising here? Because now you have women who make movies with the biggest stars and get commercial releases, vis-a-vis, say, in South Africa, between India and South Africa. Do you see any difference?
Of course, Naya Naya Pictures must be doing everything Naya Naya. Naya Naya in Hindi is new. Right? So, yeah, Naya is a Hindi word too. So, I'm sure there'll be a lot of Naya Naya things which my dear friend will be doing. But you see, it again comes to the same, remark that you shared about a producer, Deepika Padukone is in the top 10, actresses probably globally on the Forbes list, but the producer will say the market. So remember that exhibition and distribution of cinema is also a very important vertical to be spoken about here. And there again, it's that market force and the commerce of it and so on, which is attached. Yes, it's a big, giant leap forward for a woman filmmaker to make films with big stars. But again, her gender is of not consequence here. And we must understand it. Because she's a woman and she's making films with very big stars is not of consequence. Probably she's a filmmaker who has crafted a project which has the kind of capacity where it can lend itself to that kind of, positioning that big stars come. And this is what happens, and this is where, again, I'm going back to where I started. The misnomer about women being able to direct or produce cinema. Remember, it is always going to be the prowess and the prowess of the individual, the person who's doing it, and the capaciousness, the capacity of the project. But again, yes, it is connected to commerce, it's connected to markets. But let me also tell you that film festivals all across the world, and we have to salute to them how they are becoming great platforms. And I think this festival is a first of a kind. India is hosting it, and we are very proud to say that there's been tremendous cinema which has come from all the countries, and I think this itself can become a great dialogue forum for cinema which is being made with women, with men, for women and men, and this collaboration, can go forward if, this becomes a constructive ground to, take the dialogue forward.
And also, I think somewhere we should just stop the demarcation of woman-oriented, male-oriented, directed by woman. Would you like to say something to the effect?
You take a film like Bajirao Mastani, okay, and my new name is Mastani. So I hope to find my Bajirao in India. You will. The only thing I remember about that beautiful film was Deepika. But the fact that Deepika is one of the top 10 actresses in the world, and she is not even anywhere near the second tier of the male actors, that is a problem. In South Africa at the moment, we have one film which was produced by women, and the other woman, in fact, who was the producer, was supposed to be here. She couldn't make it, so I came in, instead of her. And they produced a film which was the first film that actually broke even at the box office. Because you must know that South Africa is a very small country, population of 53 million. We are a young country, so we are still trying to build audiences in terms of our own films. So we are beginning to see that. But nevertheless, the issue of patriarchy is very strong. And picking up on what you were saying earlier on, we do want to work with men. We are not leaving men behind. But at certain instances in history, like in South Africa, for instance, in August, women organized to march against the past laws in 1956. It was the most successful march in the history of South Africa, which was organized by women. And women said that men are either going to be with us or not. And the men said, well, if you go and march, who's going to look after the children? And the women said, you are. So at certain points in history, if men don't want to participate on our journey, and as I've said, that you are not doing us favors by actually inviting us into your club, women need to create that space, and men will be left behind, because women are phenomenal. And when we set our minds to doing something, we do it, and we do it well.
And also somewhere, Vani, and something I've been observing is sometimes women do a disservice to women too, because if she's bold, she's outspoken, and she says it the way it is, she is branded. And then when she fights against the misogyny of men, say in her industry, she's branded again.
But then, again, this is again a sociological issue. Who is branding whom? The women also are sometimes coming from a mindset of the conditioning that, prevails around us. And that's why I'm saying it's kosher. It's not kosher to say it's only about the men or about the women. It has to have a kind of a universal appeal. But as far as cinema is concerned, we cannot take away the fact that making of cinema has a component of commerce and finance attached to it. And whether we like it or not, very much like the way we discuss politics in India, we go on and on about, how women are great leaders, but we only have about 10.5% of parliamentarians. So who's going to push policy? At the end of the day, it will be pushed by men. So you will have to work with them and they will have to work with us. Also, as she very correctly says, culturally, every country has had its own moment of history. The independence struggle that India went through is also a moment of history, which is very much about the women and as much as the men, who participated in the freedom struggle, and we, got out of the clutches of the British Raj. So, what I'm trying to say today is that branding and conditioning is age-old. It's prehistoric almost. It's that primitive that this regression will not go overnight. That's why the dialogue, the capacity to be able to outreach, and I think there is no better opinion making than cinema and theatre and literature. Because these are the forums which actually give the independence for the creative mind to express itself. That's why cinema is very important here. That's why the voices which represent this cinema are very important here. That's why the kind of cinema which is coming from Brazil and from South Africa and China and of course India. And contrary to what my friend says that they are inculcating a habit of audiences, we have the audiences, but we have to probably get more projection space for the audience to be able to see it.
Absolutely, I so agree with that. Would you like to say something to that? Yeah? Would you like to comment on what Wani just said?
China is adding one theatre each day. This is what we read, and
absolutely,
and that means that there is a culture of cinema which must be very vibrant and which must be very, vociferous right now. What is the way forward for China if it is actually adding one screening theatre each day, to its bouquet of exhibition of cinema?
可能就是语言的关系，就是翻到我这边的，可能和你的问题是不一样的。
Maybe she is not getting this point actually.
但是今天是这次是第一届的金砖节在印度召开。如果大家想更了解我们中国女性在电影中的一些精彩的东西的话，我也欢迎大家明年第2届金砖节的时候去到我们的中国的成都去看一看，那样的话你们会了解的更多。谢谢。
This time she's saying this time we come here for first BRICS Film Festival, and next time in China, Chengdu, China is hosting second BRICS Film Festival. So she is inviting all of you there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me ask her the question, something like one said how China is adding to exhibition space, but Brazil has had a long history of women. What kind of cinema do you want to see now at a platform like that from women? What kind of stories do you want to see them make? Instead of getting trapped into only women issues, what kind of stories do you as a woman want to see?
Bom, eu gosto muito dos filmes que são produzidos nessa região que eu nasci, que é onde tem outras produções fora do circuito comercial. E no filme que eu trabalhei, por exemplo, que vai passar aqui no festival, são histórias de 3 mulheres em gerações diferentes e mostra a força da mulher. Que a mulher ela traz uma outra lógica sobre força, que é diferente da lógica de força do homem. E acho que é um momento muito urgente que se fale sobre as questões das mulheres.
She's saying that I like very much to work in the film, and in Brazil there are many films which are made on the woman, and the condition of woman is uplifting, and they are showing that how woman is important in the cinema. And definitely I will work to I will take some women, or I will make movies on the woman, on the condition of woman. And she also has done one movie, his story of 3 women, and in which she has shown that how the woman has different perspective and how they are different from the male candidate.
Acho que o importante das histórias que forem contadas no cinema é que essas histórias sejam verdadeiras, e sejam um desejo de cada artista de cinema, um desejo seu de falar sobre aquilo. Acho que quando falam sobre esse desejo, qualquer pessoa que assista vai gostar do que está vendo.
She's saying that in the cinemas there are many stories which are shown, some are trues and some are false. But people definitely like, or actors also like to work on on the true story. So whatever the true stories are, definitely the public also like that, and the actress also work for that, like the true story, on the true story based.
Actually, it's a fact, because nowadays we're seeing a more real life story of heroes. Again, I don't want to make male and female here, but real rooted women is what people want to see. I think more power to that.
Well, I mean, there is not that much, to be quite honest, and if truth be told, there isn't that much very strong content on women globally. So whether it's in literature, or whether it is in documentary, or whether it is in film. And so at a certain point in time, I would imagine that the constituency, which constitutes more than half of the world's population, they want to be counted in. And also, the people are intelligent, people are smart, and people actually want to see stuff whereby it's not constant about constantly demeaning women. There'll be many beautiful women in the world. There'll be, but actually some of this content where women are props or where women are trophies in films, that narrative is actually boring.
Absolutely. And a lot of women, like Meryl Streep, were we were speaking before that, you said she doesn't have roles written for her. Like roles after a certain age are few and far in between. They still have to struggle, because a 50-year-old male actor will still get a role written for him, but a 50-year-old woman has to go into the supporting cast phase. We have some brilliant actors, but they said, now I'm aging, I'm not going to get the main lead. Who's going to come and watch it?
I think eventually that's why I'm saying that even if this catharsis is looking like slow in terms of its journey, as far as India is concerned, that's why I'm saying the past couple of years the smoke screen is gone, the glass ceiling is finally broken. And when you see actresses today, when you see, I would name them if you are aware, of course, Deepika Padukone, but when you see a Vidya Balan, she's actually the change of the discourse.
Yeah.
She's probably one of the first female leads in Taboo to some extent, who does very little work and you barely see her, and whenever it comes out, it's a very strong film. These films are written for them, and they are almost written as protagonists, where it doesn't matter whether she's a male or a female.
Absolutely.
It's a protagonist, and that's again coming back to what I'm saying. The narrative is that the protagonist and the character and the way the character is attempted to be written, so there have to be stories written where the protagonist is that really strong female form, and what happens to her. So similarly, past few years, when you have seen films on violence against women and coercion and real issues of women, initially, again, the same knee-jerk reaction happened. Producer says, who's going to watch this film? And people have struggled for almost a decade to even find finance. But finally, when they got out, the kind of response they got, which also tells you that probably this communication between what people wish to watch and what is being made to watch, this communication needs to, agree. They need to agree with each other. This marriage needs to happen more.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're right, here in India, our roles are being written for women, keeping them in mind. And they've actually been the top box office earners, where your top stars not been able to make that much money. So, I mean, would the audience like to ask our distinguished panelists any question here?
Wow, what a brilliant audience. They've agreed with everything.
Everything we've said.
Get a mic, please, and please introduce yourself so that we know who you are. For giving us that much of your time to sit and hear us.
Thank you very much, and good morning, and thank you to the panel for a very interesting discussion so far. My name is Monica Newton. I'm a representative of the Department of Arts and Culture here from South Africa. I suppose I'd like to ask the whole panel, what really tips the balance for women? Is it money? Is it skill? Is it opportunity? Is it a combination of all three? If you were to look at your careers as actresses, producers, directors, what was really the thing that changed your view, that changed things for you?
I think it's choice. As far as I'm concerned, there were opportunities, there were challenges which turned into opportunities. I started acting when I was very young. But I chose the roles that I believed in. Now, this may sound very bizarre. That means I may have made in my career as an actor, and now of course I produce too and direct, I may have made lesser money than probably my own compatriots who were probably doing more work than me. But it's a choice. I chose to work in projects, whether on television or theatre or film, which had a kind of a mindset which I identified with. Which means that there was a certain regression that I shunned. It was difficult in those days to, have that kind of mindset. But I think I could just muster up that much courage, and it was about the choice. So for me, choice is bigger than opportunity, commerce, or, the circumstance in which you are.
For me, it was also choice. I've never chased after money because I always felt that as an artist, I needed to be true to myself. And I wanted to make films that I wanted to see. As I've said, South Africa is a very young country. So I wasn't seeing films that I wanted to see. So I made those kinds of films. However, now that I am turning 50 this year, I feel that it is very important for women to make money. Because I think that making money within the concept of what it is that I do, because it's such an expensive, exercise or hobby, it's important in terms of how sometimes I will be able to drive certain things. But at the same time, it's the balance, because I'm still not chasing after the money. But I'm now beginning to think about the commercial aspect of if I am going to do this, I need money to do this.
True, absolutely. And you've been risk takers at a time when, people were a little like, should I just do this because it's a big film with a big star cast? A lot of time women have actually said that it didn't matter. As long as she was paired opposite a big actor, it was a big director, she would say yes. But that's changing now, what I can see here in India, because now the actresses demand to know what is their role in the film. But again, it's a huge risk. So you had a question.
Actually, this is mainly related to religion, actually. So,
tell us about
I am Sunil Kumar. I am actually very much interested in watching movies. So, this is regarding religion, actually. As far as women's condition is concerned, they are thought to be left in comparison to men. So I think that the main reason behind this is religion. Because of religion, we know that Muslims, Hindu, there are certain conditions and certain rituals and all that, because of which women, it is thought that they are left behind. So what is being done in this regard? Like, still there are many producers and directors, those they don't want to venture into, this risky thing. Like, I think one author, Taslima Nasreen, is there. Her film is held up. A film on her is held up just because of the way she talks and she thinks about. So what the women producers are doing in that condition? Is there...
My brother, you are asking the wrong person. At the end of the day, all of us need to collectively create a more egalitarian society. A society which is devoid of patriarchy. You know what I'm trying to say? So, and I want to believe that there are certain people who are religious, but who actually do believe that men and women share the same platform in a relationship. I want to believe that. I might be wrong, but I want to believe that. For as long as society or any section of society thinks that women are inferior to men, there is no hope. So what are we doing about that? I don't know if it is my responsibility, quote unquote, to dictate on how someone can interpret religion or their space in it. But I do think that I have a certain responsibility in terms of articulating the vision of a more equal society. And so whoever is going to see what it is that I do, maybe they might be, I come from a very patriarchal society, but at the same time, in my country, there are women who are very strong. Very, very strong. And the same way here. Shiva is the god of universe, and she's a woman. So what are we talking about? I just think that patriarchy is there to put women in their place, and it serves, men think that it serves them, but actually it does a disservice to society.
Religion is a part of the conditioning, and that's exactly the large ambit that you have to look at. I think I also personally feel like my friend that no belief, no religion would ever talk of inequity. If you look at the Shastras, if you look at the Puranas, or what I know from the Hindu old scriptures.
The Shakti.
Nowhere, the Shakti, the Ardhanarishwar, as she said, Shiva is a woman, it's Ardhanarishwar. And in the Chinese culture, as I said, the yin and the yang, and the balance of it. So I think no religion or no belief ever taught gender inequity or coercion or that. Again, our human minds, our convoluted human minds have interpreted it in such a way that it has led to this kind of misogyny and has led to this kind of judgment which happens against women. As storytellers, we are storytellers. Film is also storytelling. Yes, we have a responsibility, she's right. The way you articulate it, the way you interpret it. But if that responsibility were to put on my shoulders, our little tiny shoulders, it will be a disservice to the very cause of the fight which anyway is happening. So expression is both. Your expression is as important as mine, and so is the conditioning.
And also in looking back at our Indian film industry, earlier there were the women who were actually powerful. Devi Karani, Bombay Talkies was set up by her. Alamara, you have Nadia Hunter. They were women who were the driving force. And it's all about unleashing your inner feminine Shakti, as they say. Anybody else has questions?
I have one don't have a question. My name is Bubbles Sabarwal. I'm a theatre director, and I'm a director, and I'm a writer. I've written books, and I'm a columnist. My point is, all creative arts, literature, film, theatre, film, literature, talk about storytelling, right? We talk about storytelling. Creativity breeds creativity. I think it's not a question. I think to open the windows, to let the birds of creativity in, I think our friends here who are so influential, I know Vani is, we need to encourage more storytelling, script writers. In my country, script writing is a terribly forget patriarchal. It's a very closed door. Not enough script writers are allowed to come in. I'm sure in the hinterland of Madhya Pradesh or Bhubaneswar or Roorkela, I'm sure the people telling, it's all about storytelling. I don't think we have a good enough corpus, a good enough body of storytelling. So I think people up here need to encourage a great, I'm talking about the Ganga, I'm talking about an ocean, I'm talking about a huge corpus of stories, out of which new stories will emerge.
Absolutely.
Forget the male, female, it'll emerge strong, because it's from the gut, it's from the womb of real life. So please, storytelling,
You have a question.
script writing.
Content is important, as they say. Content is, I won't say king, content is queen.
Hi, my name is Meg Rickards. I'm from South Africa. I have a film showing this evening called Test, which is very much about women. It's a women's story, so I hope some of you come and see it. My question is, it's a question for the panel. I got approached by a producer recently who said, I'd like to speak to you. We're looking for a female director for a certain story. And I've never heard someone being approached because they were a male cinematographer or a male filmmaker or a male director. And I wonder whether other people had had that issue. I mean, I was flattered to be asked, but is it a kind of ghettoization? Is it a kind of othering? Is it a kind of labeling that you take offense at? How do you feel about being labeled as a female director, producer, or filmmaker?
Very true. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Women for women has become it's a misnomer. It's not just ghettoization. It's almost commodification. You suddenly have films which are marketed globally in international cinema, made by a female director. Does it matter whether the director is a male or a female? I mean, it's the way you want to tell the story and the way you articulate yourself and the way you actually express your creativity, that is what matters. And this again will become another one of those boxes which we will all be, sitting in very soon. So very nice and congratulations. I've heard a lot about your film. I'm actually dying to see it this evening. The more we will put the box out in the open, the easier it will be for the lid not to fall in. And I think yes, this is the new industry which is becoming the underbelly of probably some kind of cinema globally, where it's directed by a female director. Of course, I mean, this happens, and it happens all over, and I think it's time that we express ourselves against it as soon as possible.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Last question.
I'm Aditi Roy, ex-member of Central Board of Film Certification, Eastern Region, long ago. I just wanted to ask a question to each of the panelists, is that I found in recent times there's a huge number of short films coming up, and there is no cinema hall which show these short films. And secondly, what I found, most of these short films are women-centric in content, and a growing number of very young directors, women directors, are directing them and are available only on YouTube. So what I was thinking, since you had South Africa had just pointed out about the release of the films, women's films, and then getting the market and all, do you think, I mean, each of the panelists, do you think if women directors and producers, if they sell their movies on the net, that way, you get a planet-wide audience, because we never get to see the films from these countries in our cinema halls. And this is first decade of this 21st century is over. I want your opinion.
In fact, the culture of cinema, or the culture of it's shifting. It's a pity that my learned jury member from Russia is not here, because he was actually talking about how young people now are watching more and more shorter content. Yes, but he was just talking about how cinema is actually shifting, because younger people are getting into stuff more expediently, and they are watching shorter and shorter films.
And cinema tickets are very expensive.
Yes, so that is a platform that is probably going to take over, although there is nothing like watching something on the big screen. But the internet is a platform that is taking over, and the internet is actually, the appetite is for shorter films. I think that it's a market. but I don't think that someone is going to pay money to go and watch maybe a 15-minute film at the cinema. I think that, you know, because people like the experience of cinema and the big movie and all of that. And I just think that is very interesting because there is something, I mean, some people are very purist about film and cinema, but I like the fact that actually poor people can actually make films. You can make a film on a cell phone because it's demystifying the notion that people with money can only be producers, they can only direct. I think that it is becoming readily available to poor people. And I think that we need to demystify that. Whether it's, I mean, you've got other platforms like Netflix where people can sell their short films, you know, on the internet. And I think it's interesting if we are talking about empowering the common person, which is what really cinema should do. It shouldn't be the exclusive domain of the rich. So I think that those platforms are interesting. I've never explored that, but I definitely think that it's the future.
India is going through a digital revolution. It's a very, very pertinent question to ask. You know, with the outburst of the digital space today, very soon, and I'm saying this with responsibility because I'm studying it right now, very soon it will become redundant where the film is exhibited. Remember, we started with the spool, we started with the film, then we went forward, and now it's come to a little microchip. So as technological advances happen, filmmaking is also becoming more dynamic. It's a dynamic process, so is exhibition of cinema. And also, how can young people, I mean, I recently read that there was a competition held globally, you know, of films actually shot on a cell phone. And it became viral. And where was the last time you had 1 million hits on a 15-minute film? But I do agree that it is the responsibility of, it's some kind of responsibility, you know, whether it is state or, you know, the investment that we put, you know, for culture and for, you know, cinema and entertainment per se, that short films and non-feature films should get exhibition spaces. Frankly, I think there are enough film festivals all across the world which do a great job of, you know, doing those films. Yeah, but I think the larger picture should be if they are exhibited on TV. If we have television, you know, sort of, yeah, and as television, because today entertainment is in my bedroom and in my drawing room. It's no more just confined. It's probably, you know, a little child playing on a tablet and watching content, which also scares me sometimes. But I think this digital revolution, and India is a part of it, Netflix has changed the way we look at content today. And why is it just Netflix? There's so many search engines, legal ones. I'm very anti-piracy. You know that. So I think this space is very dynamic. Exhibition of content and the way it is being seen, the way it is being received, and the way it is being you know, uploaded is very dynamic right now. I think we'll have very big surprises very soon as far as advancement in this sphere is concerned.
From this Panchayat is that if women directors, you know, they don't follow whatever the men did right through and change their mindset regarding the technology. That will give them a wider...
Very good. Thumbs up to that. Superb. It's a brilliant idea. And a former CBFC member saying gives me a lot of hope being on CBFC right now.
And lastly, before
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Zeba, and presently I'm a student. So this was a very insightful thing today. I come from the land of tea gardens, that is Assam. So my question is, every time, you know, last year I came to Delhi and, you know, there was constant stereotyping, like be it looks, I mean, anything. So when people generally ask me, oh, you may be coming from the land of momos, but I want to say that I'm more than the land of momos. So what I feel is there has always been a, you know, stepmotherly attitude towards this region of the country. You know, we have diverse culture, be it cuisines, language, everything. So how do you feel that the mainstream cinema, I mean, can come here and, you know, showcase that this region is also very much a part of India, unlike the mainland India?
You know, it's a very interesting question, and it's a serendipity. Just last week I was talking at a very big university in Delhi, and which also does art, aesthetics and cinema, and the same question came, and one of the panelists happened to be from the Northeast. I think increasingly there is a great amount of collaboration which is happening as far as filmmakers and artists from Northeast is concerned. Northeast is not a alienated region of the country. To begin with, let's say it's one country, and Northeast is a very vibrant, culturally very, very diverse and very culturally active, segment of India. As far as your cuisine, culture, your theatre,
And
your
even
music, your performing arts is concerned.
Even since she said about patriarchy, we do not have that much of a patriarchal society in Northeast.
Yeah, we all
it's
know.
more of a matrilineal
Very strong
society.
women, yeah.
It's
But I think again it will boil down to that core question of the biases that we are living with. It connects to that. I do know that stereotyping is the worst in, for example, in a city like Delhi. I grew up here, went to university, Delhi University here, and I know what, the students from the Northeast, go through. And it's not just banal and bizarre, it's absolutely abhorrible. But having said that, for example, a film like Mary Com, and why do I mention the film? It's a very big, giant step in telling the story of a great hero from the Northeast, world boxing champion from India. So proud she made, the country and also the region that she belongs to. When that story reached global audiences, and when a popular actor like Priyanka Chopra, and this is also a question which was asked, why was it Priyanka? Remember that sometimes populism also lends those narratives a way that it reaches a larger audience. And sometimes telling that narrative is more important than only containing the narrative to the intrinsic part of society that it belongs
Absolutely.
to. And cinema has that role, cinema has that capacity, and that is when I say that it's a collaborative effort. This collaboration has to go forward, and only then we'll be able to break this stereotyping. Only then we will be able to break this kind of ugly, mindset which we have amongst us.
Thank you so much. And of course, the women here have broken those stereotypes. Sorry, maybe after the panel we can, Thank you so much for joining us, and more power to the BRICS Film Festival. Thank you so much.